Welcome to part 2 of Death House Revamped turned into the Count Lugosi Manor, Dungeon, and Crypt. Part 1, we went through the house, and now our character is in the dungeons in the crypt. And I'll go through here, and there's probably the biggest changes here. And again, the changes fit within are made to fit within the narrative of Curse of Strahd, but the changes are also pay tribute to Bela Lugosi, the actor who played Dracula in the 1931 movie, which I cover in the first video, and Boris Karloff, the actor who played in the original Frankenstein. He played the monster, the creature, in the movie Frankenstein. So I only have one character here, and we finished this a few sessions ago, and I have 6 players in the game. Before we get started, I'm going to show you something, and it's something that I think as a DM you should think about, and something that I would definitely redo the next time I DM this. So let me just click on the screen here so we can see the whole screen really quick. Yep. There we go. The problem with the Death House dungeon, and I'll zoom out just a little bit here, is that each one of these squares represents 5 feet. It's fine if you have 3 players. If it's just 3 players going through here, characters is going to be fine. But when you're with 6 and you're in a row, I mean, if you look at this, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The characters, you're going to have a problem with, I would say 4 is probably the max. But if you're playing with 5 or 6 characters, they're always going to be in a line. It's going to be very, very hard to do combat with a whole party in some of these very tight quarters in the crypts. So there's something you can do. Here's my first recommendation. If you have a party that's going to be 5 or 6, even 4, I would probably do this. I would go into your map, and I would reconfigure the map so that reset these grid lines, and you can do that. See, I've got them set up right here. I don't want to mess them up too much. Well, I'll do it and not commit the changes. So I would, I think I do is the Alt mouse wheel. I would bring these actually way down. Let's try 50. See what happens here. That's a little too small. Let's say about 100. 75. Let's try 75. And I think what you're seeing what I'm doing here. What I want to do is I want to use the arrow key, shift. Use the. Well, it should be working. I don't know why it's not. Let me just do this again. What you want to do here is get these squares, 4 squares per 1 square. So then you can get your players side by side in the grid. And so technically you're turning a 1 5-foot square into a 10 by 10, 4 5-foot squares. And you can do this easily in Foundry by just resetting the grid, and it'll work fine. I would definitely do this again if I was running 5 or 6 for sure. I would even consider it if I was running a party of 4, and that means you're going to have 2 characters side by sides going through these narrow hallways. Let me see. Yep, I don't think it set it. Let's hope it didn't. I don't know, they kind of screwed this up, didn't I? Yeah, I should be fine, yeah. Everything looks fine now. So that's the first thing I would do. I would certainly consider resizing the grid. So let's talk about the rooms here and move on to the adventure as is. In the original Death House, these crypts here are the family crypts of the dead children and the Durst mom and dad. And I've completely revamped it. In fact, you'll find that the dungeon and the crypts are the most revamped compared to upstairs. So the first thing is talk about the Crypt Entrance, and I give them obviously the image of the Crypt Entrance. And here's what they see. I kind of describe they've entered a crypt. I don't like to get, again, I let the pictures speak for themselves, and I want to get quickly to narratives of action. As authors, we call this show, don't tell. So the two crypts to the north are empty, and what you'll find here, let's go back and look at this from our character's perspective. So they go up to the north, and these two are empty, and I just leave them open. And what you'll notice in these crypts here is I've hidden two swarms of rats, and I have a trigger on these. And throughout the map, some of the NPCs I'll have hidden, and some of them I'll have exposed. So the rats are hidden. And when they enter into these two crypts here, what the character sees and what I describe to them is this: it's empty crypts. It looks like the coffins have been ripped open. It smells really dingy and mildewy and moldy. And they see this image, and the question is are your characters interested in exploring or not? And that's pretty much the trigger that I have here, and it gives you a little bit of latitude. This is two swarms of rats in both of these. If they go into the room and if they go into this square, if a character goes in the square, I automatically trigger the rat attack. We go right into combat. Otherwise, I'll trigger the rat attack if you're going to have them, if they want to search the room. So they're making some kind of proactive engagement in searching or the coffins or something like that. So both of these, either they're going to trigger because they're actually on the square with the rats, or they're doing some kind of engagement. If they don't do that, I leave it alone. My players, they saw the picture and they said, yeah, let's just bug out of here. And they did not engage with the rats. The next room that my characters go down to is the crypts down below. And this is where I make some significant changes. And what I wanted to do was introduce one of the backstories of one of my characters. If you watch the backstories that I made video backstories for all my characters that interweave their own backstories with the Curse of Strahd campaign. So, and one of those is actually right here in these crypts. So the crypt to the north, the door's open right now. Actually, there's a slab here, and they have to move the slab. There's a strength check. I don't hide this creature because in this particular room, they hear a scratching sound. And what you can do is you can use the sound item that I used before, this sound thing, where you draw a sound here, and when they get close, it triggers a sound. But I found out if they're always in this area, the sound's going to go over and over again. And so what I did, instead of doing the sound, I went over here and just played the scraping sound. So when they get up here, this door is shut. It's not a door. I describe it as a slab, a big stone slab. And they hear this behind the slab, this scraping sound. And I do it a few times. And it sounds like somebody's trying to get out. I describe it's like metal on rock or stone, and there's something behind it. When they open it up, this is going to be pretty much, most likely, other than the rats, their first encounter in the dungeon if they head south right away. And this is a skeleton walker. Now, what I do and throughout the dungeon, I'll be showing you this, is I'll have a lot of the same type of creature. So let's say you're going to be running 5 or 6 of these skeleton walkers, and I'll show you what I do later. What I do is 2 things that I always change up, so not all of them are the same. Not all of my skeleton walkers are going to be 15 hit points, and not all of them are going to have an armor class of 16. What you want to do is change it up, keep the players on their toes. So I come up with a range, and you can use a random, some kind of dice or some kind of randomness to figure this out, or you can just sit on yourself. So my skeleton walkers should be anywhere between like a 13 hit point all the way up to maybe an 18 hit point, and the armor class between like a 14 and a 16. So every time when you're in a combat with one of them and you assume it's always 16 to hit or higher because they think they figured it out, the next time you start hitting at a 14, they're like, well, wait a second, I thought skeleton, and you just tell them, it's like, well, they're not all the same. Some of them will go down easier, some will go down harder, some of them will be harder to hit. So make sure that you change the hit points a little, change the armor class a little bit, keep them guessing. You don't want to keep something static. That's a simple, basic DM tip. So they engage with this character on in this next room over here, and I'll just go to the other side because the important one is in the lower right. And by the way, I can show you each one of these things. I do enjoy putting the pictures in here because I believe the pictures, kind of help tell the story. They've opened up the crypt. As soon as they open up the crypt door, there's a skeleton this one is like a knight wearing armor, and he's a skeleton, and he's trying to get through, and it sounds like he's been scratching. I describe it later that when they see the stone slab, the skeleton must have been scratching its sword against the stone slab for ages because it's worn into the slab. So there's the image of that. I don't have much text on this, other than the scratching stops, you push the heavy slab back, etc. A lot of it are just basic descriptions to keep that narrative flowing. The other encounter on the other side, there's 2 more encounters, and they're different. And let me explain how they're different. One is invisible. An invisible starts off as an invisible encounter, and the other one starts off as visible. Let's do the invisible one first. So they open up this stone slab and they get in here, and they can't see the encounter, which is this skeleton right here. And the reason that I initially make the skeleton invisible is because the skeleton is going to surprise attack them. So in this one, what they see in the northeast crypt is this. They see a skeleton. It's holding a key. This one, they actually open up the tomb. They get into the room. They open up the tomb. There's a skeleton holding the key. One of my characters actually reaches in to remove the key. First, he's going to try to do it with his sword, and it's not working so well. He reaches in, and then he's surprised. The skeleton grabs his hand and attacks. Now, I made this skeleton kind of unusual and kind of fun, in which this particular creature, once I make him visible, is not a full skeleton. It's lost its legs, so it doesn't have the ability really to come and attack. So what I do here, I'll show you. Let me get the... Did I get him? Oh, I keep on going to the wrong screen. There we go. So this skeleton here, it's just a crypt skeleton, I call it. Doesn't have a lot of hit points or armor class. And it just has a skeleton swipe. And pretty much its speed, I slowed the speed down to 5. It's crawling. And the skeleton swipe here is just a really simple, let's see this here. And one of the things I do in Foundry is all the attack descriptors in here, and I'll show you what I do, is I just delete it because I don't want my players to really know what's going on with these descriptors. So sometimes I'll take out the flavor text altogether, or I'll just put in, a skeleton hand swipes at you. A lot of the flavor text and mechanics is just really descriptive of what's happening, and you don't want to give those kinds of details to the player. So it's just, I have up here, it says a skeleton attack, and it just says R. You can see it up here. I kind of made it, and he does 6 slashing damage. But what actually happened in this encounter was quite funny. Was I thought it would be a weak encounter because it's a one-on-one. And again, this shows you the danger or the problems when you have 4 or 5 or 6 characters in this particular module. Is it's just too narrow. It's only going to be a one-on-one in a lot of these encounters. The one character in this case kind of gets trapped in here, gets some damage. The skeleton gets off a little bit of damage, and it turns into a little funny episode that he'll probably be teased about for a while. But he does get the key. There's a key in here. And again, we're using keys down here because there are a couple of locked doors, several locked doors. And again, as I stated in the part 1, don't get caught up in what door the key opens. And the reason for that is because if they miss one key somewhere and they find another key somewhere else, you can, as the DM, decide which door is going to open. And the reason that you want to do this is if you try to tie the key to a specific door all the time, and they can't find that key, and you need them to get through that particular door to move on, to move the narrative forward, you're going to be screwed. So what I do is I allow them to collect the keys. I just keep track on it. I have this, by the way, a little plug for a product that I really, really like is I have one of these writing tablets, where you can write on it. And so I keep all my notes, my gaming notes as I'm playing on this, DM notes and player's notes, and I can just write with my pen on here. So, and I'll show you some of the notes that I use on that. So I just keep track of how many keys and who has what keys and what needs to be opened. The next encounter, let me just zoom out here and we'll move on to the next encounter real quick. And it's the one down below. So this one, again, I made the enemy in this one, the half skeleton in the crypt, invisible. The one down below is going to be a visible encounter, and the reason so is because as soon as the door opens, they're going to engage in combat. And this one is more of a crypt zombie. Again, swap out those hit points, change the armor class. This only has a 13 armor class. I slowed the speed down a little bit, and I changed the hit points a little bit. Again, and you can come up with some of your own attacks, and I'll show you. I've done that in a couple of flavored text. So we've knocked out 3 of these. We've got a skeleton, old knight trying to get out. There's a zombie in this one, and then there's a skeleton, half skeleton with a key in this crypt. Now the next one is not an encounter so much as it's one of the characters' backstories that ties into the game, and that's this lower door here. And this one here, they open up. They slide the back the slab, and they go in there, and it's lit inside. You can see it's lit inside. And why is it lit? Well, let's look at this here, Southwest Crypt, and you'll see a lovely picture here. I described this candle in this picture as the eternal candle. It's been burning perhaps for 100 years, and it doesn't go out. And the text in this, they open up the tomb, but the text on the tomb is this here. Let me get it right there. The air is cold, the tomb sits before you sealed. The symbol on the tomb is the Order of the Dragon, and there's the eternal candle burns next to the tomb. The etching reads, Sir Rickard of Lisdor, Order of the Dragon, Herald Knight who fell at the siege of the Castillo Branco. You remember, and then I read the characters, you remember the legendary siege against the Dark Forces almost 1,000 years ago when the Order of the Dragon was first formed to protect Lisdor from the Dark Forces. 2 of my characters, one's a paladin, one's a cleric. They're both members of the Order of the Dragon. They're on their way to Barovia in search of their master, who was on a quest for, guess what? The Sun Sword. So this ties into their backstory. And when they actually open up the tomb, and in my GM notes, they find a longsword, a unusual longswords with some unusual markings, the markings of the Order of the Dragon. This is a new weapon, and I'll put it in the notes later on, but the weapon is a special longsword that does some additional radiant damage. And they're a little nervous by taking it because, they know from their backstory that their knights are always buried with their swords. This is a legendary knight with a legendary sword. And so they're afraid to remove it. And so they actually go through a ceremony here. They pray to see if the gods will allow them to do it and answer their prayers because they don't want to disturb this tomb. And they actually leave their own sword and replace it with this one, which has an additional 1d6 in radiant damage. And they seal back up the tomb and they do a prayer here. So it really pulls in the character's backstory, the history of the characters in the Order of the Dragon, and ties it all together. And they later find out in here that this property that Count Lugosi bought used to be Sir Rickard of Lisdor's property and manor 1,000 years ago. And Count Lugosi had bought it, and that's in the wills that we find out later. So they learn a history about this manor is tied into the whole backstory, which I think does a really good job keeping your characters engaged in the story. From here, our characters moves on to this next room. In this next room is where the proverbial SOL may happen. This could be a TPK if they're not careful. And I love timers. I like situations that there's a countdown. Something's going to happen. You only have so much either time or something's happening, some mechanic is happening that's creating stress. And this was their first, I think, really stressful encounter. And in this room is what I turn it into is the Frankenstein's kind of lab. I described that there's bones and blood and all kinds of stuff on the floor. I think, let's go through here. Yep, this is the right one, the laboratory. I call this the laboratory. And when they come in there, you're going to see what they see. It's really dark. There's bones and stuff on the floor. I said, you see something in the shadows in the background, in a little alcove back there, and you hear kind of a noise. And again, when they enter into the room, what you can do, what I did in this, was go ahead and you can play a noise, and one of the noises, I think it was this one here. Let me see, which one is it? Maybe it's this one. Nope. Yes, I think that's the one I used. That's a long one. When they were just entering the room, they heard this noise. When they approached the other side of this room, in this room I leave dark on one side. So if we look at this from the player's perspective, it's going to be a rather dark encounter. Now you can see, because you're watching this from my perspective, there's a creature in this corner. And when they get close, because here, we'll just move them closer, I'll go ahead and show you what this creature looks like. And I turn on, first of all, I make the creature visible. I turn off the invisibility sign. Sorry, it's backwards. Let me turn around. And yes, it's the Frankenstein Monster. And looks like he has 30 to 50 hit points. I create two interesting scenarios with the Frankenstein Monster in here. I just call it the monster. Let me show you, first of all, the descriptor I have in here, which is right here, the monster. The monster is chained to the floor. And as immediately when the players get close, the monster, and again, just a little bit humanoid parts, is chained to the floor. He seems secured, but he's angered by being restrained. What happens is the monster breaks free with one arm right away and it's chained with the other. So the monster cannot move at this point. However, it does have a new weapon, and that weapon is the chain. So the chain weapon this monster has, chain attack, the monster's hand is a 10-foot reach. Monster flails, whipping the 10-foot chain at the targets, causing 1d6 plus 3 bludgeoning damage. You can change this damage to whatever you want based on how many characters, based on your character levels. And so each time it's the monster's turn, he goes through and he does his chain attack. And I just rolled the chain attack. Again, I've made this chain attack mechanism. Obviously, that's a critical failure with his chain attack. But you get the idea. He can hit out this far. So he's like whipping this chain around. Now, each turn, the monster is going to try to break free. And this is a DC check. And I showed you this once before. 19, he would have broken free. I showed you this before, and what's with the hanging zombie. What this does is it's creating tension for the characters. The characters, when we go into combat, the first thing I do is I click on combat music, and the characters only have 1 minute to make their turn. And I'll show you how that looks right here. So as soon as we go into combat, and let's just say both these characters go into combat, this is what happens. So I select them. They're both in combat now. We go to the combat. This is the wrong one. I don't know why this combat's saying skeleton. Zombie. Okay, let's select these again. Got both of those selected. And here we go. They're both added into combat. I begin combat, and you're going to see here there's a timer across the screen. It's going across the bottom of the screen right now. There's a turn indicator on the one player. You can see it right here. It's spinning. And as this red line, it's right now behind my screen. You can see it right down here. And you can hear the music. I usually get the music a little bit louder than that, but there it goes. The characters really hear it. It gets really loud. Oh, it's turned down quite a bit. So I want to cause stress. So they're freaking out. They've got a minute right now to move and make their action. There's going to be a countdown. You can hear the countdown. And at the end of the countdown, guess what happens? Their turn's over. Goes to the next. In this case, it's the monster. So it creates some panic. There's some pressure on. I mark each of the characters. Now the monster's going to whip. Now what I'm describing is happening. This monster's flailing. It's trying to break free. You can hear it just yanking at its chain really hard. And what happens is the monster, after I try to make the chain attack, he gets this extra attack to try to break free. And I show these rolls because I want to create stress for the player. So they see break free. He rolls an 8. They don't know what the DC number is, and I've secretly set that DC number. And it also depends what's going on with your characters. You can set it as low as 10 if your characters seem really strong, or you can set it 15, 16. With my characters, I had it set fairly low. I had it set at like DC 12s. I did not have any modifiers for the monster. You could, if you wanted to, you could add strength to it. I'm going to go ahead and end combat. Here, hold on so that we can just end that music and the stress. But one of the things that I want to do in combat is increase the tension, increase the stress, increase the panic, force the characters to make creative solutions. If my characters make a mistake or whatever during their turn, they can fix it or re-roll it. But when that minute's up, we just go to the next player. Now, if the player comes to the end of it and he hasn't finished his rolls or his turn, it's just too bad. We move on. Or depending on the situation or the character can't figure it out, I give him a dodge. He automatically takes a dodge. I just say the player is hesitant, he's taking a dodge action, and we go on. It does create stress for the players. Some of the players don't like it when it happens. They're trying to figure something out. But remember, if you have, in my case, 6 players, there's 5-6 minutes going by for you to think about what you want to do before your turn. So if you're not thinking about and figuring it out before your turn, well, you're SOL. And if you don't know what SOL means, well, I'll let you figure that out on your own. The point is I want to create that feeling of combat. A turn is representing 6 seconds. You got to make that decision, make it quick. A minute to make a 6-second execution is quite a bit. So this is a really, really good example, in my opinion, of creating stress. You've got the biggest creature they've faced so far. These characters are level 2 at this point. They've got a pretty strong monster who's got a deadly chain attack. Now, he does break free in my game with my players, and he actually moves out. The monster ends up moving out fairly into the middle of the room, and now he's got 2 attacks. He gets his chain, and he also has his monster fist here, and I'll just roll that here. Let me see if I can get that. Nope, I'm on the wrong screen. There's this monster fist. And these are just attacks that I've made up myself. And you can change them here. Oh, he rolled a crit. And that would have been ugly. A crit with 5 plus 8 critical damage. And if I click on here, you can see what it is. It's a 2d4 for his monster's fist. Boy, that would have done a lot of damage. I mean, it could have killed one of my party members for sure at level 2. So, but with so many people hitting on him, they ended up taking him down. But it took a while. This was a pretty fierce fight. But I can tell you, the trying to break free with that extra chain and them seeing you roll the dice, and they're just all wondering, what's that DC check? And when he breaks free, he's able to move. Now, I did weaken or slow down his speed to 20. He's kind of a Frankenstein, actually a flesh golem, in other words. So he moves a little bit, he's lumberous and he moves a little slowly. So this was a really fun encounter for them. It created the first kind of, I think, real threat to them and a little bit of panic. So let's move on here and kind of back up so you can see where we are and what's going on. So this was the monster encounter here. And I'll just click on my character. You can kind of see what he's seen so far. I got another tip for you I'm going to show you in a little bit here. I don't know if I saved it here. So he's been up to these crypts here. These 3 crypts I've explained. This one here is the tomb. I always suggest, when you've got 4, 5, 6 crypts, don't make every one of them a monster encounter. Put one of them in there as a story element, some loot, something interesting for them to find. Otherwise, it's just a hack and slash all the way through. We went down here. This is the monsters room. I'm going to go back up to the top because that's exactly what my players did. They kind of panicked a little bit and they retreated after this combat session. They ran all the way back to the top, and they ended up going to the west up here, and they entered into this room here. And this room is kind of the cultist room. I'll kind of explain what I mean by that here. What I did with, rather than having cultists, I had, and I put cultist creatures in here and because I had deleted the previous ones. In the story, and you'll find out that Count Lugosi's retreated down into the dungeons, and these are his minions, his servants. And I've sprinkled them and hid them in here. So let me show you first kind of the little narrative I have here. In the guards room, I call this the guards room. This is what they're seeing. It's a guards room. There's a table, chairs, there's some things lit. And they hear a little bit of a noise, but they don't see anyone at this point. They do notice on the table, though, is I put 4 wooden stakes on the table. And this is important because you don't want them to metagame. The characters don't know what vampires are. I mean, obviously the players do, you and I do, but we can't metagame. So, they see the 4 stakes on the table. The players don't take the stakes. They think, and they do so. I think they did a great job not metagaming, saying, oh, it's just wooden stakes. We've got some swords and whatnot. Why would we want wooden stakes? What I did in each one of these rooms down below, so these are kind of like the bedrooms, the rooms of all the servants. And I put 3 servants in here. The first servant is in here to the south, and I left them visible because I want, and they're all resting. These 3 servants are just resting in their rooms. There's a guard, there's one wandering guard. So you take 1 servant and he's wandering, and you could, if you wanted to, you could number off the big rooms and then roll every round or every representation of 10 minutes to see which room he shows up in. So there's a total in this dungeon of 4 guards. 3 will be in their rooms, 1 will be in a random room. So the first one that's just sleeping in his room is just south of the characters, and they hear a noise. Technically he's like snoring, whatever, and they end up going down here and engaging with our guy right here. Let me just, there we go. So our paladin goes down here. The whole team went down here, and they end up not killing him. They got him down to real weak. This one had, and again, I don't call them, they're cultists here, but what I call them, they were all guards. Anywhere from 9 to roughly 15 hit points. Armor classes between 10 and 13. They each had different weapons on them: sword, mace, axe. And this ended up turning into a role-playing. This one has a sword on it. They beat him down to nothing, and then they started asking him questions. Why are they down here? And this is where the players learn that the house, the manor up above, was under attack by dark minions. Count Lugosi retreated into the lair, and they're there to fend off anybody that's trying to enter. Obviously, we've read the letter. Count Lugosi's got this gem. Strahd wants it. Strahd's obviously sent his minions there, or they kind of figure out somebody sent minions there. They've attacked the house. They try to convince the guard to go back up the house. He said, no one's there, everything's okay. But he won't go, and then eventually one of the players kills the guard. The characters then head off in this direction here. And I want to show you something that I do with some walls here in Foundry, and I'll tell you why. I put a wall right here in front, and you can kind of see it. It's let me show you the walls here in Foundry really quickly and why I do this. This type of wall here is one of these masking walls. And what happens because of the range of this particular dungeon, if I don't have it in here in some areas, like there's an area right here, if I don't have it and you put a character right here, he will be able to see all the way down this hall into here, depending on what angles he's in. So what I do is I use these invisible walls at an angle where there's a staircase. So you can see there's one here, there's one here, and I'll show you what happens when the character, let's grab the character and move him there. So you can remember there's one here and there's one there. If I take my character, and I'll bring him in down here, and you'll see, oh, he didn't come down with me. There we go. You'll see that he can't see. In this, I put it at an angle so the characters can see part of the stair. They don't think it's a blocked hallway. But he can't see above the staircase here. He has to actually move up the staircase, and then again, he's not able to see up the next staircase. And this is just a vision blocker representing kind of elevation change. It's a little tip, DM tip, if you're using Foundry. so that the fog of war doesn't light everything up. Otherwise, he'll be able from this angle to see way, way into other rooms. And so this is just a way to help limit their fog of war mechanic. Now let's talk about the well room. And this was a really fun encounter for everybody. Well, maybe not for everybody. Not for one of our characters, that was for sure. Again, I have 3 guards. I have one in this room here and then another one here. So they've already encountered one. There's 2 more. But what I do is at this well right here, I've marked a ghoul invisible. And any player that's within one of these 4 squares next to the well, I roll a die. And you can set this again, any DC that you want to. It's a hidden roll. And if you roll whatever your check is that you're going to roll, the ghoul reaches up and grabs the character. And that's when the character has to make a strength check. So imagine the ghoul's jumping up out of the well, grabbing on with his hands or his arms onto the arm of one of the characters that's standing next to the well and trying to pull the character into the well. The ghoul, in this case, grabbed one of the blood hunters, and the blood hunter failed his strength check. The ghoul, with all its weight, yanked on the blood hunter and pulled the blood hunter to the bottom of the well. And then our cleric dove in after them and went to the bottom of the well and landed on top of them. And so how did I role play this out? So the character gets yanked. These fleshy kind of dead-looking hands reach up, snag you by the wrist. He rolls his strength check. He fails. The creature pulls him in, and he just falls forward, dropping down this shaft and hitting into this murky, dingy water. There's a splash of a foul smell of urine and just rotting flesh. And the ghoul is underneath him, and they're struggling. I had him roll a 1d4 and the ghoul roll a 1d4 of damage. Then when the cleric jumped down the well, I had the cleric jump 1d4. Now, how do you do this when you got this little picture here and they're all here? What I did here was I just took I did this on the fly. I went over here, I grabbed some walls. You can see it right here. I actually drew this during the game. These are solid walls. And I just reached up and I grabbed each one of these characters and I just dragged them right in there. Hold on, there he is. Yeah, so now he's in there. And I end up turning on the ghoul, make the ghoul visible. And I drag the ghoul, and they're all on top of each other in this thing. And so what the character sees, which is really funny. There's the ghouls on top. I need to get the ghoul out of the way. I can't because they're all on top of each other. But what the character sees, and I'll just move the ghoul out of here again, is when the character's in the well, this is his entire visibility. I've just made this, you can draw it a little nicer than what I did and kind of draw it more permanently like a round thing, and you could actually put some water in here and make it look nice. In fact, I'll just do that right now to show you how that's done. So we're going to go over to the wall really quick. I'm going to just drag my character and pull him out. And I'm going to really quickly show you how I draw a well and drag this and just put it in here. So we're going to grab our character and just move him over here real quick. There we go. Come on, there we go. And now I'm going to grab this. And I'm just going to delete the walls and just redo one right quickly here. So we're going to delete these. Boom. And I'm going to draw a new well, a more round well. Whoop. I didn't mean to do that. I think it's the control button, so it's here. And I'm just kind of drawing a really crappy circle. Like that. Yep. And then what you can do, this would be fun, watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take this blue, I'm going to take a light, I'm going to click on light. I'm on the wrong screen. Yeah, no, I'm on the right screen. And right in the center here is I'm going to draw a light. And I'm going to make it as big as I can. Oh, that's too big. Kind of zoomed in, so it's going to get a little wonky on me here. There we go. Make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Now here's your well. So you got your well here, but we're going to change the light, and we're going to make this so it feels like a kind of a dingy light. We're going to just pick a color over here, and I have to look at this real quick. Make it kind of a bluish color and hit update. Okay, and there you go. So there's the well. So now when we go back to the character, you can just drag your character into this well, and you've got this kind of feeling. He's in there, and it's kind of like you're in this well now, and it kind of looks like there's a wall here, and now you have an encounter. You've created just on the fly this kind of the bottom of the well. The character can't see anything other than this, right? This is all your character is seeing. And they're in the well, and you can grab your creatures. And so what happened is there was 3 players in here. There was the cleric, the paladin, the cleric, the blood hunter, and the ghoul. And the cleric, I didn't even let the cleric need a roll to hit. He had the spear, and he just slammed the spear down into. He was standing on both of them. In fact, he did another 1d4 damage to the blood hunter, but he slammed the spear right down into the ghoul and killed the ghoul. And then they pulled him up out of the well. So this is just a fun little thing, little tip just to enhance the game, create the excitement. Again, you've got the battle music going. People are tense. They got a minute to think. It really makes the game exciting and fun. So now we're back out. And again, you're going to have encounters in each one of these rooms. By the way, that blue, it really makes it easier, so when it's time to drag the people into the bottom of the well, you know exactly where it is. It's right here. Each one of these rooms, I had a little chest with a little bit of gold or something in there. Nothing major, but I would suggest in each one of these rooms, put a little chest. There's a little foot locker in here, and you can decide what you want to include. If you put it in here, you can see on my notes, each one I had a little note of what's in the counseling minions. He rushes to attack you, and I don't have any GM notes on that one. I don't think there was anything in that locker. Maybe there was one in this one. Footlocker is locked. GM notes, and it's a footlocker contains a silver short sword with the insignia of a wolf. So go ahead and put whatever you want to in there. Randomly mix these guys in here. If you're going to run this a couple times, if they think move one guy over here. It doesn't all have to be the same. Let's move our guy on to the next location. Now, in the traditional death house, the trap is right here. This is where the trap is in the traditional death house. I moved the trap because everybody knows where the trap is, and I don't want anybody to think they know where the trap is. The problem with death house is, in fact, in my game, I have 2 dungeon masters and 2 very experienced players. I think the dungeon master, one of the dungeon masters has played Curse of Strahd, including Death House, and the other one is DMing Curse of Strahd, and he's done Death House. So they both really appreciated the fact that I made so many changes in here. So they didn't even get uncomfortable metagaming because there was enough changes. So let's move our character on, and we'll take a look here. And here he goes up the stairs. And normally they would be in a trap right here. Here's where the trap is. But I didn't have the trap here. And the character, the party actually went down here surprised there was no trap. They weren't surprised. One of the players that has played this is surprised. And this is where they come to the trap. So let me tell you what I did with the trap. I used this is fun. Another fun thing that I did with one of the modules. The same module I showed you in the part 1, which was the moving from upstairs to downstairs, which is the multi-level token, I used for the trap. And so when the character was standing in the corner here, I said, oh, roll, just do a perception check. They failed the perception. So as the player is moving down, I'm going to show you what happens. So the player is moving down. He cannot see this. Remember, this is invisible. I've made this invisible. Player moves down, he's just walking down, and what the hell? What happened to him? He falls into the trap. And so what I did was I actually made the character, I created another box, and I made this a one-way, so it's just in and out. There's no way for them to get back out. I have to drag them out. And so in this particular trap, what we did was it's an at-in :trap. This one's at-out trap. So any character that steps into the square is going to end up here. I think two of them fell in, if I remember correctly. They both rolled damage. It wasn't a spike trap, but this is, I'll show you what the trap looks like. Here's what the picture is. I said, the floor gave way beneath you. Bats flew up out of the floor, and you fell down to the bottom. They both rolled. Now, again, you can decide what you want them to roll. You can make the trap with spikes in it. My trap had no spikes, but the bats in there kind of created some fear for the players that didn't fall in the trap, and the bats kind of flooded the corridor. The players that fell, I had them both roll 1d4s. And then the other players had to figure how to get them out of this pit. When you want to get them out of the pit, you just drag them back here. What I did was, after they fell in the trap, I went ahead and turned the trap on so they can actually see it now by doing this. And I just right-clicked on it and made it visible. And now all the players know exactly where it is. And I told them, hey, you fell in, just so you know where it is, reference on the market where the ground fell away and there's a pit. So now they can all see it. They can just, so they don't accidentally fall into it and flip. They decided to jump across here, and some of the players decided to go in the other room. So we'll just do what our players did. They all helped each other out of the trap. Oops. Let me make sure I click on character and just drag them over here. And so our character is now in this room. This room here is another kind of a spooky room, and there's a locked door here, and let's learn about what this room is. This is the Dr. Karloff study. You remember the book is a tribute to, the game of this adventure is a tribute to Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff. Boris Karloff, who played the actual monster in the original Frankenstein. In his role here, he's Dr. Karloff, trying to reanimate the dead. And so they find, in this room, I show them this picture here, and I read them this text, and the text reads, the chamber appears to be a study, books and writings cover the table. You'll notice on the table a journal is open to a page with a picture of an experiment. Reading the notes, you realize it's the journal of Dr. Karloff describing experiments reanimating the dead. Excuse me. So this kind of ties in, this whole room and the journal ties back into the monster up here. So, here was the lab up here with the monster, and down here you're now in the study, Dr. Karloff's study. This door is locked, and you can decide if the key that they found unlocks this door or not, and it depends on where they are in the game. You can make that key unlock this door or unlock this door over here. This door here, I save this as a door they can't open until later in the game. I'll explain that to you. So let's go. Let's just jump to the room to our right real quick and pretend our characters. We'll just pretend our characters went the other way around, this way, and came over here. We'll drop them in here. Now, this is what it looks like from the character's perspective. You can see the shadows of the creatures that are invisible. The characters can't see that. They're in here, and one of the players said this was a really spooky room for them because they got to see the skeletons. It was dimly lit along the wall. It was kind of dark. They wanted to know what these star marks over here, and it bothered me that for whatever reason, Curse of Strahd, they put these star marks in here. But this is the room encounter for them here. This is another great encounter with a timer effect. In this room is, I'll show you here. They come in the room, they notice all these skeletons, kind of like ex-adventurers and knights. They're all chained to the wall. You can describe the room as, the size of the room, etc., based on what you see here. Oh, there's some flavored text. Let me just get that for you. You see skeletons chained to the wall around the large room. They appear to be adventurers, knights, and fighters, and rogues, and others. The torches light the room. At the far side of the room, there's a statue, and it looks like a man and a skeleton, but it's too difficult to see, and you wonder why all the skeletons are chained to the wall in this dungeon. You notice a locked door to the north and a small hallway to the south. At this point, no matter what key they have, do not let them open this locked door to the north. The door to the north is an exit out of the dungeon. So I just made it a really, really heavy lock. They tried to open it. It wouldn't work. They tried to bust it open. I just made any check fail, right? What you want them to do is there's several other keys they get. It just forces them to move on through the dungeon. And that's what we did here. Actually, I think that's exactly what happened. Then when they come over here to see the statues, this is what they see. Get rid of this over here. And it's a statue of a winged skeleton. I described the statue as biting into fangs into a human victim. And I described that the eyes of the statue start to glow. And I think I have some flavored text for that as well. A large statuesque skeleton with wings and sharp teeth biting a victim. It is a grim reminder of death and what lurks in the darkness. The statue is made of pure white marble. You notice there is also 2 dark red gems for eyes that begin to glow a dark red, and you hear a whisper coming from the statue in a chant. What happens here is you can do this one of 2 ways. You can do it where, and this is what I did, is I started rolling checks for each one of these skeletons. So each one of these here is a skeleton, and I just reloaded them in here so they're not all different. But you need to make those changes yourself. So each one of these is a skeleton. They're invisible, and you're going to do a DC check against each one, and I'd have all the DC checks the same, and I would set the DC checks if it's a powerful party, set the DC checks down to like 10 or 12. If it's a weak party of maybe 3, I'd set your DC checks up towards 16, 17. Just roll a straight D20. And what you're doing is when you go through each one of them and you're seeing if they can break free, right? So the skeletons come to life, and I let the players see these rolls, right? So what you're doing in here is you're rolling here. The players get to see these rolls, and you're telling the player that. See, there we go. You just tell them the skeleton to the upper right starts moving and starts pulling on its chains, and you just roll your break free, and then just show it to them. And then you just start going around the room. So go around the room and do a DC check for every single one and see if any of them break free. Now, if they don't break free, all the skeletons are slowly coming to life, but they're not able to break free. When they do, you can, as soon as they roll, I would just make them visible. So now they see a skeleton. Now it's trying to break free. You can put what I would recommend is in there so you know which one's broken free and which one has not, is put one of those symbols on there that's going to help you know if it's stuck against the wall or if it's trapped or not. And I don't know which one you want to use here, but you can just use one if it's broken free or if it's stuck. I have no idea which one to use. Maybe you can just use the sleep or something like this. And you're just putting an indicator on here for each one of these skeletons to determine if they've broken free or not. Now, so one way to wake the skeletons is the statue. The other way, in which actually happened with my characters, is they ended up coming through, or the party split, and they opened up this door with the key they found, and the key they found opened this door, and that's when they ran into Dr. Karloff. So Dr. Karloff was right here, and we had a little bit of role playing, and he got really upset. Who are you, and what are you doing here? And he, Dr. Karloff, kind of escapes and runs into this room, and all the players ended up chasing him as soon as they busted through this door into this room. And then what Dr. Karloff does is he reads off a kind of a chant. He says something to the, wake dead, and he goes through an incantation, and he wakes the skeletons up. So in both cases, either they come through the door here to the south, and they wake up, Dr. Karloff lures them into the room, or if they come in this way and they see the statue, either case the skeletons begin to wake up. This is going to be a big encounter, and it's going to be a big encounter because there's going to be a lot of creatures. The good news is it's a similar encounter to the Frankenstein, meaning that their creatures cannot do anything if they're chained to the wall. They got to break free. This gives free hits by your party members to any skeleton that hasn't broken free. Now, what happened in mine, I think this one down here didn't break free. I think one up here didn't break free, and this one didn't break free. But this one, and this one did. I had quite a few. They started surrounding the party in here, and what you want Dr. Karloff to do is maybe get one or two hits in if you think you can, but the way that you want to play Dr. Karloff is he's going to try to escape. And in my case, Dr. Karloff tries to escape this way. He's hit, he gets injured, and right up in this area in the ceiling is our druid who's switched into a spider, fires off a web, actually chases Karloff. He's running down the hall, and then he fires off a web, and he captures Karloff right here, as a matter of fact, in order to they keep Dr. Karloff. They keep him a prisoner for a while. I'll tell you what happened, what they do to him. But they interrogate Dr. Karloff to find out about Count Lugosi, and Dr. Karloff shares with them that himself, as well as Count Lugosi, have come down into the crypts because the manor was under attack by dark forces, and you learn that Dr. Karloff is building his monster, and they're raising their own undead and army to fight against Strahd. Strahd wants this gem for whatever reason, and you don't find out. You'll find out. You'll find the gem, but you won't know why Strahd wants the gem. So let's move on with our action here. So you see what's going on here with the characters. The characters then, after this encounter, they go into this room over here, which is Lugosi's underground chamber, or I think one of the characters called it his bordello, and that's his private chamber right here. And so this is what his private chamber looks like, and there's some important elements in this room. This room is an important room, not only for the campaign, but even for the adventure. So you describe there's a journal in the room, and then I actually copied over the journal, and then it has some journal entries in here that I show to the players, and I actually print it for the players. But it's Count Lugosi's journal. So the four entries are: I found the gem, and its power will protect me from the Dark Lord. Grant me unimaginable power. I must keep the gem hidden. Then the next one is: several attempts at incantations have not worked. I need to solve the mystery of this gem. Excuse me. Dr. Karloff has made progress on the monster. He's found a way to raise the dead and has experimented with the crypts, but are unable to control the undead. And then he's cast a spell on his new young beautiful servant named Lily. She's resisted, but he will turn her, and she will see the power he's given her, and she will join him. So you're learning a little bit about Lily, what Dr. Karloff is doing, and that he hasn't got this gem to work. The last entry in here is interesting too, in Count Lugosi's journal. The Dark Lord has cursed me and my family. He has sent his minions to raid the manor. He's turned my young son, Boris, and I fear the good Dr. Fletcher will not be able to save him. I've sent the nursemaid far away from here with my young, dear daughter, Bela, in hopes of escaping. So clearly from this last entry, Count Lugosi doesn't know what's happened to Dr. Fletcher. And he doesn't know that the nursemaid didn't get away. But you do learn that the minions have come in to attack. He does say, my dear wife has been cursed into the most horrible of creatures, and I've locked her away. Perhaps Dr. Karloff can find a cure to cure her affliction. I have retreated with Dr. Karloff and my servants to the dungeon crypts. My cultist servants are too weak to fight off the Dark Lord's minions. I hope Dr. Karloff finishes his monster soon, and he believes he's safe now. So really this is kind of a retreat down into the crypts and dungeons. You now know that there are a lot of information from this journal. Dr. Karloff is working to create undead. His minions aren't strong enough to fight against Strahd's minions. He has this gem, but he can't get it to work. He's got his new beautiful young servant, Lily, which you learned about, that there was a new servant in the house earlier. You also learn that his wife has been turned into a horrible creature, cursed, who's probably down here somewhere as well. So there's a lot of good information in here. There's a couple other things in this room, and you'll see it. Again, this appeared in the top. This is his wife. She's locked in here, and she is a creature at this point. So not a good thing. In the chest here, this is a loot chest. I had the journal, again, I put a couple of spells, scrolls in here. It's a good just place to put some loot. This is the private chambers of Count Lugosi. It's putting some loots in here, a couple of spell scrolls, whatever you think might be appropriate for your characters. If you had done like I had and stolen a lot of their weapons before they got here, this is a good place to get them a couple of much needed items that you think would be appropriate in Count Lugosi's room. The other thing is there's a secret room over here, and this, if they discover the secret rooms, which my characters did, they'll discover the gem, and in here. So I put the gem in the loot sheet, and this is the gem. Obviously, it's the gem that both Strahd and Lugosi are referring to. It's a big blue gem. This is what it looks like. This is the picture that they see. And, I mean, they come to the logical conclusion. This must be the hidden gem that both Strahd and Lugosi is possessed as Strahd wants. But you just don't know what it is, but clearly it's powerful if Strahd wants it and if Lugosi has it. And really this gem, by the way, ties into the three gems of the three fays. So if you've been on Reddit and you've read about the three sister fays and the gems that are buried in the Wizard of Wines, this is the lost gem. This is the blue gem, and Count Lugosi has it. And so the characters get this gem. They have no idea what it is, and so I've woven that into the storyline. But they get this gem. It doesn't do anything for them, but it has this power, and they have to learn what to do with it later on. The other thing I put in here, which is part of my storyline for my characters, I have a warlock, and there's a book here called the where is it? Right here. He's an Orcus warlock, which is a warlock that I made up, where his spells are burned into his body like tattoo. So every time he casts a spell, the tattoo glows, and he actually in the beginning, he takes damage every time he casts a spell because it's catches on, his body is hurt the first time from this power that's coursing through him. This book, this is a really cool feature, by the way. I wanted only my warlock to be able to read the text of the book. And so what I did is, here's the text of the book, which tells the history of the Orcus warlock. The book, my character is trying to find the evil mage, the lich at the Amber Temple, actually, who's hunting Orcus warlocks. And the Amber Temple used to be the Orcus warlock stronghold over 1,000 years ago. And so that's woven into his backstory. He doesn't know where the Amber Temple is. He doesn't even know about the Amber Temple. He just knows that there's this evil mage that's hunting warlocks, and he's been sent to find him and destroy his powers. So this book gives him a lot of good information. It has a story here, but this is what I did. There's a module called Polyglot that allows you to change this into another language. And if I click this right here, you'll see what it looks like. So this is what all the other players see. All the other players see is some kind of gibberish language, because I let everybody see this. This is what the book looks like. The only one that can read this is the warlock. The warlock can turn that off with a rune button and read this here. Polygot's a great module for Foundry. So this was an important book for the backstory in here. And it also has, it doesn't reference Strahd directly, but you learn who Strahd is. So it says at the very end, and I'll just read it to you because I think it's a cool little hook here. Hundreds of years had passed, and the Amber Temple and the Lich again were forgotten in the Bela Mountains, where no mortal man would tread. The Battle of Barovia had been long and cruel, hundreds of fallen soldiers and no ground gained. The young prince trekked into the snow-covered Bela Mountains, hoping to find a way to encircle his enemies when he stumbled upon the Amber Temple and learned of its dark secrets. He made a pact with the Lich, who granted the young prince dark powers to win the battle over his enemies and seize Barovia. We all know who that is, that prince who becomes the Dark Lord. And if you read Curse of Strahd, you know that he gets his dark powers from there, etc. So that's how I've tied that in. The characters don't know at this point this prince is, hundreds of years have passed and this is a history. They don't know this young prince is Strahd at this point. But this is a great way to introduce some information to the great module, and I suggest always putting some hooks and some items in there that tie your character's backstory and Curse of Strahd together. So let's pull out here, and so we've gone through all the rooms here, and now they're going to the down below to the dungeon. So let's drag them down here. I'm going to grab the character. They've got the gem, and the way back out is up here to these stairs going down. Again, I put the angle in there so you can see with the angle going down. And he heads down. As soon as he gets through there, you can see. And this, again, is going to take him, boom, we use that jump feature that jumps him down to the crypts down below. When he gets down in here, this is the last couple of rooms of the dungeon. The party finds this room. In this room, I didn't want to really do too much. They've had a couple of big encounters. They had the Frankenstein Monster. They had the skeleton room. They take on the ghast. I think it was a ghast. That's Elizabeth, the creature that's locked in the private chambers of the Count. So this room was just kind of a room that I left as like a ritual room. I said there was a lot of blood on the floor. I'll give you the picture and the room descriptor right here. I call it the ritual chamber. This is what they see, and there's skeletons and body parts in the wall. There's some blood on the floor. I have some flavor text right here. Alcoves are stocked with grisly trophies, severed heads and limbs, skulls, shrunken heads of a halfling, and more. There's dry blood on the floor. The place seems to be used for rituals. To the south, the floor slopes down into murky water. It ends with a solid wood and iron door. You notice light emerging from the hall to the southwest. And this is the dungeon. And, I really was disappointed in the original Death House because the dungeon really doesn't have anything in it. There's a skeleton with a gold ring. Nothing. So this one is another time trap. So we've experienced the zombie hanging, trying to break free. We've experienced the Frankenstein Monster trying to break free with its other arm, using the 10-foot chain whipping. And then we've had the skeletons. The skeletons can't attack until they break free. So these are all break free mechanics. This one is a timing mechanic where something will happen if they don't get out of there in a period of time. Rather than a creature breaking free, it's a time mechanic. And so I'll show you how this one works. So our characters, obviously, I make it almost virtually impossible for our characters to enter enter down here. And so they have to go down into the dungeon. And when they get down into the dungeon, let's just walk them down there. Oh. And so you're seeing how our characters see this, which, I have to admit if I was a player and this is all I could see, and I got fog of war and it's dark and I don't know what's around each corner, it's going to be a little creepy. So now they're down in the dungeon. And what happens here in this dungeon, and I'm going to turn off fog of war really quick so you can see, is there's a girl locked up at the bottom of the dungeon. And they start hearing her cry. And I actually have a sound effect for that. And I'll just put that in there. They actually get sick of hearing it. It becomes a running joke. So here we go. They actually get really, really upset with that after a while. But it's good comedy. It becomes kind of a joke every now and then I get it going. So they find her at the bottom. And so this is an interesting encounter. And this is how this one works. The first thing, let me just hit this note right here. So here's the prison. This is what they see when they first come in. They see it's a prison, a dungeon with dungeon rooms, etc. They hear a noise at the end of the prison, something rattling, and this is when they find her. And this is her encounter. So this is what they see. She's chained to the wall. They assume, they don't know, but they assume it's Lily, and then they engage with her. And this is what happens. So every question they ask, every action they take, I let them have 2 or 3 questions, and then I start rolling the D20 die. So they question her, and I have the Q&A right here. So if they ask her, who is she? She says, her name's Lily. She's from the village of Barovia. Why is she here? She came to Count's Manor for a job as a maid. What happened? She doesn't remember. She went to sleep one night and woke up here. A question about the Count or the dungeon. She's been taken to a bedroom in the dungeon every night and is visited by the Count but doesn't remember anything. And then she volunteers this information. Hurry, free me. The guards are going to come. They check on her every so often. So this is when the panic starts setting in. And she starts panicking. And I role-play her panicking. And she starts, come on, just let me free. Now, the handcuffs on her, they have to free each one. And I made them DC 18 checks. No, they got to use their strength. DC 18 checks on both. You can raise it higher if you wanted to. Every time they either try her handcuffs or some other turn marker, I roll a D20, not to see if they can free her, but to see when the guards come. And the guards are right here. So what I did was I loaded up all the guards along the side here, invisible. I always like to make things invisible in case I screw anything up and they can actually see them. So they're off the map, right? And so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I just leave them here invisible. And what I do is when I hit my DC check, and I forgot what I set it for. In fact, I might have it listed right here. Maybe I put it in here. I don't remember. It could be in here under my game master notes. DC 18 to break the chain, lockpicking DC 15. They didn't have lockpicking. DC to start the party. Oh yeah. So what I did was the first DC check was 18. And then everyone as I reduce it by 1, which creates a lot. It'll happen quicker. So it'll eventually happen faster because I'm lowering the DC check after every time I roll. So the first one was 18, and I reduced it by 1 each turn. When I rolled an 18 or whatever the DC was, is when I went over here and I pulled one of these guards and I dropped them in and made them visible. And the first one pops up. Some of them have bows, some of them have swords. I think the first one had a bow, and all the characters, if I zoom out a little bit, all my characters were down here, and a bow whips down. I think one of them got hit by an arrow. And so they break off, players break off into this area and this area, and a couple of them move up here. This is a secret door, which they don't see. But I have one of these monsters over here. And what happens is, so all of these were running DC checks, and this one's running a DC check. One of my characters got up to here, and right when he got up to here, this guy made the DC check and came through. So now they are surrounded. This was a really frustrating battle. Make sure you make each one of these, and you can barely see them. I'm going to just highlight them and make them visible so you can see them. I had them all right here, and I just put them over here and drag them in as they hit. So I had one of them over here, and the rest of them I just lined them up over here, and then when they hit, I just put them one after another right here. And pretty soon, after a few turns, I mean, I didn't have them all like that. Let me just grab one at a time. But I'd have one, and I just drop them in, and then all of a sudden I roll, and another one comes in, and I drop them in. I'm like, these guys, and then pretty soon they were getting backed up in here. My players ran up here. Two of the players ran up here. They ended up killing this one here, and a couple of the players get into this room here. And they realize they don't know how many I have. I have quite a few, obviously. They use bonfire here, and then they just start holding them off. But they eventually begin to retreat. A couple of them take some damage. All the party retreats through here. As soon as the party retreats through here, and so in effect, they're kind of railroaded into here because this door. I'm going to make this secret door open. No matter what. The guard's going to come through this door will be the first DC check. He's the first DC check to open this door to come through. And so they didn't see the guard before, so there's now a door open. And when they pass through here, if you're the character, this is what happens. So before, now you see this room. You couldn't see this room before. When this door was shut, right? What happens is the room's gray. And you'll see here in a second, the room's gray because the red light's not splashing into the room, right? So our character's here, the room's gray, but when the creature opens up the door, the room gets flooded with red light. And you can't help but see the red light splash into this room, right? So our character now notices there's red. Where's that red coming from? When they stand here, now they can see into this room. So this lures all our players into this room. And pretty soon, all the players are in this room here. And they all retreat into this room. Now, here's our count. He's invisible at first, and I'm going to show you how I brought him into play. So let me make him invisible. When the players get into here, and all of them get into here, this slams shut behind him, and what I do is, because I don't get rid of the door, I just lock it. I just say the wall shuts behind it and the door just disappears, and you're kind of screwed. It's just, you're now stuck in this room. And now all the players are in this room, and let's talk a little bit about the setup of this room and the setup of their final encounter. So in the final encounter here, the first thing I did, and I'll show you what I did with the lights here so it makes sense to you. I have several lights in this room. I have the main light right here, and I'll click on that one. This light right here is, I'm using, again, dancing lights, and I'm using a fade in and out, and I'm using two different reds, a red and a dark red and a light red. And so the room's kind of going red, dark red, light red. And you want to create this kind of really deathly ominous feeling. The other light that I have is I have two small candle lights right here and right here. And then I do another red light on this mound here. Now this, in the typical death house, this is the Flesh Mound where Walter is. In my version, this is where there's just dead adventurers and body parts, and it looks like it's just leftover carcasses, like something's been feeding on these things. And it's really kind of gross, to tell you the truth. So my players are lined up along here. They've grabbed Lily and they've pulled her in here. They've freed her, and she's, of course, I'm playing this, and they're just getting really. She's scared. She just wants to escape, right? And so, of course, let me see. Of course, she's doing her little song and dance routine for these guys. They don't really like that. So I'll give you an idea. Let's take a look at how our characters perceive this room, and you can kind of see how ominous it is with this glowing, changing color. So you can see the room is going to get brighter red, and then it's going to get darker red. Let me zoom in a little bit more, and you can kind of get a feeling of this kind of fading in and out. You know, you can pick two colors, and it's going to get darker, and it's going to get lighter, and the colors are just changing. And this is what they see in the room. So you remember, we want to do a picture to kind of give them, right now what they have is just a battle map. And here is the pictures of the room. Okay, it's this one right here, the lair. So when they step into the room, this is what they're going to see. Did I click on it? No, I didn't double click it. There we go. I think it's coming up. There we go. So this is what they see. They see there's water on the floor. There's these pillars. The ceiling, I describe it, it's about 30 to 40 feet high in the center of the arches. And in the center, there's a little island raised above the water with a tomb on it, a kind of a stone tomb. This is the stone tomb, what they see there. So there's candles on both sides. There's a stone tomb on it. Etched in the stone tomb is the name Count Lugosi. He's not anywhere to be seen, but now they're locked in this room. If they try to open this door, they can't. Now, they have a key. The key doesn't work on this. The key is actually on Count Lugosi. So they got to kill Count Lugosi to get out of this room. There's no way out of this room at this point because they're trapped unless they kill Count Lugosi. Count Lugosi is a vampire. Let me show you his stats and some of the things that I did with Count Lugosi. So I actually raised his hit points up. I had him at 90. I raised him to 140 for my encounter. Before the encounter started, just watching on how, because I had 6 players and how they were dealing with the other creatures. So I went from 90, I took him up to 140. 16 strength, 17 intelligence, 15 armor class. And one of the things that was really frustrating, and I mentioned this in my philosophy for the Destiny RPG, is, you know, even at level 1, we have a character with a 19 armor class. We have another character with like a 17 armor class. Even at really low levels, having high armor class is just a percentage to hit. And so with a boss like this, looking back on it, I would have raised his armor class up. I think he should be closer to a 17 or an 18 armor class, and I only have him as a 15 here. So I recommend to bring him up to about 17, 18. Again, move the hit points up or down and the armor class up or down depending on your party. If you have a party of 6, and they're pretty powerful. Take this up to 150 hit points, raise his armor class up to 16, 17. He does fairly well. He almost takes out one player, but I just rolled really crappy, to be honest with you. It was just crappy rolls. His features are, I mean, he's a vampire. He is what he is. So let me just bring this over here. He has unarmed strike, bite, shapeshifter, regeneration, spider climb. He should be able to take out one of the party members. I expected this to be an encounter that did a lot more damage to the party. I thought there was a high probability that we would lose one party member, but we didn't. And they did a really good job. I'm going to tell you right now, sometimes the most deadliest player that you're fighting as a DM is not the player that does the damage. It's the player that inhibits you from being able to do damage to others. So we have a druid in our party who turns into a spider. He's done it twice now, and he's cast a web on Count Lugosi. And Count Lugosi, now you're inhibiting his ability to move, and you're inhibiting his ability to do damage. He does change into a bat at one point. They can't hit him. He flies up to the ceiling. But this is how I introduce him. So I bring him over here. Nobody knows where he is because he's hidden. So I grab the count. And I move him over here. And there's a character over here, by the way. And I'm just going to move this character over here. So nobody knows where Count Lugosi is. And I bring this character here. And what happens is this. So this is what the players experience. I'll show you. I had a little fun with this. So I have this little module right here. And I have special effects. Bring it over here. And I do this. And I smoke bomb the whole room. And then you hear... And guess what happens? Right after the smoke bomb, and you hear the laugh, Count Lugosi materializes right here. Now, he materializes, what I do is he materializes right next to Lily. He grabs Lily, and he just bites her. Just a huge bite in her neck, drops her to the floor. She's fully unconscious at this point. I mean, she's probably not going to make it, or she's going to turn into a vampire. Let me see, did I turn him on or off? I don't know why it's not. Yeah. There we go. Here he is. So this is my Count Lugosi, and this is going to be your final combat. And playing the vampire, turning him into a vampire bat, certainly got me out of trouble. They were trying to take him out. He flew over to the center of the room. He then rematerialized over at this side, changed back, did another attack, did some damage. He tried to run this way, and they eventually killed him. What got him was our cleric rolled a crit on a guiding bolt, and just it was so much damage that the count just exploded. I mean, blood went everywhere. It was a great final battle. I mean, they were chipping away at him quite a bit, but that guiding bolt at the end did a lot of damage. Several of the players took a lot of damage. The druid DMs, be careful of those druids that can cast webs. That can really tie up one of your players. So just be careful with that. Anyway, they get out, and there's a key on the count's body. They find a key. When he exploded, there was, in his remains, they see this golden key, and that's the key. That's the key to the room here. So let me see if I open this up. And they're able to escape. They're able to escape because they get up to this other room, and they try this key here. Let's just roll this out. And this room here There we are. Let's just zoom in again. This one zips them up to, come on, door open. Sorry, it's just, I have so much of these dancing lights, it has to make sure that it refreshes and aligns all the lighting down that corridor. So they head up here, and again, I use one of those mechanisms, and they reappear back in the, I don't know if it's still turned on or if I turned it off. Oh, it's turned off right now. They reappear back in the manor, in the den of the manor, is where they reappear. So let me skip that for you. So this is where they come back out. They come back out here in the den room. There's a trap door in the floor. I'll just and then they leave the manor. So that was that's it. That's the basement. How I played out the basement at a real high level view. You can take a look. Here are the crypts with the rats. The other 3 different crypts. The crypt with some interesting loot. The guard room, the well event where they fell down the well. Here's the bottom of the well. I showed you how I made that really quick on the fly. The trap is right here. This is the Frankenstein's room. This is the skull room here. Here is the study for Dr. Karloff. The private chambers where you find the book and the journal. The stairs leading down, kind of forcing them into the dungeon. I had all my guards sitting over on the side, and then I did the timer with Lily, and then the guards, I just started stacking them as if they're coming in this way. So I would have stacked them up. If they continued to stack up, I would have stacked them in this room. When the players leave, the guards are gone. I don't have them re-encounter the guards. They've just gone through an exhaustive battle against Count Lugosi. And so they have no encounters on the way out through here. They go up these stairs. From here, they re-emerge. I took out the out, but there's an out right here, and then they leave the manor. So that's it. That's the dungeon for part 2 for converting Death House into Count Lugosi's manor and dungeon. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was helpful for DMs, gave you some tips and tricks if you're using Foundry. We had a great time with this. There's a couple of things I would have done differently. I will be taking my notes and updating them. If you like this video, please click the like button. Please click subscribe. This is my, I'm still new at this with the videos. Hopefully I'll get I have a nice camera actually, and instead of using my webcam, I'll have my nice camera set up soon. Please follow us. We're going to be broadcasting Thursdays, 6 p.m. UTC +1 time. Our Curse of Strahd, Legend of Barovia will be streamed live on YouTube. I have some backstory videos of all of my characters. Session 1 recap is done. So please like this video. Please come back, leave comments, questions. I'm happy to answer anything I can. I'm fairly new with Foundry. This is the first time I'm DMing with Foundry. I have DM'd a long time ago, another lifetime ago, but this is my first time DMing with Foundry. Foundry is a great platform. I'm playing in another game on Foundry. Thanks very much for your time, and I hope this is helpful, and may all your rolls be crits. Good crits, not the bad crits. Thanks.